Good evening, you're watching AWANI Tonight with me, Farhana Sheikh. Police recorded an average of 5 murders a week between 2021 and 2023. Inspector General of Police Tan Sri Razak Hussein says there had been a total of 741 murders in those 3 years. He told Utusan Malaysia that the most common motives were disputes, jealousy, intoxication, revenge and deaths. There was also a steady increase in murder cases over the years, with 239 murders in 2021, 241 in 2022 and 261 in 2023. Razaruddin added that investigations showed that all the cases were random and not serial murders. A total of 1,509 people, including 1,332 men and 177 women, were arrested for involvement in murder during the period. Former Prime Minister Datuk Seri Najib Razak is considering the submission of a new application for a full royal pardon less than a week after the Pardons Board agreed to halve his jail sentence. His lead counsel, Tan Sri Muhammad Shafi Abdullah, said a new request was considered as his client had not received a fair trial.
Najib, who was sentenced to 12 years in prison after being convicted in a case linked to the 1MDB scandal, had applied for clemency previously, but the Pardons Board opted to reduce his sentence. The lawyer also raised questions over the pardons process led by the previous king, who ended his 5-year reign as king on January 30th. The board announced last week that Najib is expected to be released in August 2028, 6 years after he began serving his sentence. It also reduced fines imposed on the ex-premier from 210 million to 50 million ringgit. Najib was found guilty in 2020 of criminal breach of trust and abuse of power for illegally receiving funds misappropriated from a unit of State Fund 1MDB. He has consistently denied wrongdoing.
At the same time, the Malaysian Bar has called for reforms to the Pardons Board following its decision to reduce the jail term and fine of former Prime Minister Datuk Seri Najib Razak. Bar President Karen Shah says this includes reducing or eliminating the government's role to ensure independence in the pardon process. The Bar said an amendment was needed to remove the influence of the Attorney General and the Federal Territories Minister or Chief Ministers in the Pardons Board. It called for the appointment of independent persons to the board to ensure inclusivity. It also urged the introduction of safeguards to ensure that the board's power is exercised sparingly and within clear limits. The bar added that remorse and repentance must be an integral part of the pardon process, arguing that Najib had yet to show remorse or apologize for criminal breach of trust, abuse of power and money laundering. Citing Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ahmad Zahid Hamidi's discharge not amounting to acquittal in his Yayasan Akal Budi case, the bar warned a similar discharge should not be granted to Najib in the ongoing 1MDB prosecution and 2 other ongoing cases. The National Energy Transition Roadmap aims to increase renewable energy capacity to 70% by 2050. Jalani Mustafa of the ISIOS reflects on the challenges of relying solely on renewable energy sources.
Hydro, in particular in Peninsular Malaysia, there's not a lot of big rivers, unlike Sarawak. So I think if you look at the target is very much focusing on the solar energy. But Malaysia has 2 issues with solar. One is it requires a lot of land, right? So to generate 1 gigawatt of energy require about a size equivalent to 1 state of police, right? So massive area, and we don't have that kind of land in Malaysia. And of course, not every part of the country having a clear sky. So maybe the northern part have a more lesser cloud, so they get more sun compared to the rest of Malaysia. So we see there'll be a lot of challenges in relying on these kind of energy sources.
Jailani stresses the importance of nuclear energy and why it's time to get started now.
The thing about nuclear energy is highly regulated industry. So it's not like other industry like oil, where you can go and build your rig anytime you want without consulting anybody, right? for nuclear energy, there's a lot of international supervision that you have to get clearance from IAEA and that kind of stuff. So it's not something that you can do on your own without being monitored by the world, really. So it requires a very long-term planning. So it takes, the earliest probably 6, 7, or 10 years from planning to the construction. If you look at other countries, for example, France, right, which is what I always quoted, France generates 75% of their local energy demand from nuclear energy. And if you know, France also has a very successful oil company called Total Energies. They are among the top 5 oil company in the world. So they have a very successful oil company, but at the same time, they also have nuclear energy for their domestic. And during the Ukraine war, where the Russia stopped the gas supply, right? France is not affected.
We'll go for a quick break. Stay tuned for more.
Kasih sayang yang dikhianati.
Kalau Mami paling bahagia untuk Daddy, kenapa Daddy kahwin lagi?
Sebab awak perlukan saya.
No! Adakah ini satu kesilapan?
Ayah akan outstation. Dengan nama?
You nak pergi berjalan-jalan dengan explore venue ke apa ni?
Kita ambil selfie dulu.
Cinta lama kembali mencari.
This relationship will lead to...
Curang, dibalas dengan curang.
Layang-layang perkahwinan di Astro dan On Demand.
Welcome back. The Thai government and a major separatist group, Barisan Revolusi Nasional, BRN, have agreed to discuss a roadmap for peace in the region. A Thai government delegation headed by Chatchai Bangchuat and representatives of the BRN, led by Anas Abdul Rahman, met in Kuala Lumpur for 2 days of talks, their first since Prime Minister Seta Tavisin took office last August.
Chai, who is the government's chief negotiator, said the two sides agreed in principle on a draft roadmap, the Joint Comprehensive Plan Towards Peace, JCPP, which includes finding a political solution to the conflict. Anas added that both sides will discuss the draft text further at technical level meetings at the end of February and in March. The BRN has called for independence for the predominantly Muslim and ethnically Malay southern provinces, where conflict has flared on and off for decades. The southern region shares a border with Malaysia and was part of an independent Malay Sultanate Patani before it was annexed by Thailand in 1909 as part of a treaty with Britain. The most recent phase of conflict erupted in 2004 and more than 7,300 people have been killed since then.
Meanwhile, the Malaysian chief facilitator for the peace dialogue process in southern Thailand, Tan Sri Zulkifli Zainal Abidin, says both parties were happy with the outcome of the 2-day meeting of the 7th peace dialogue in Kuala Lumpur. Zulkifli, however, highlighted Barisan Revolusi Nasional BRN's calls for equal access to opportunities and resources by involving stakeholders from both parties.
BRN agree to the suggestion. However, there are few suggestions also been forwarded by BRN to ensure that it is transparent and at the end of the day, it is a win-win situation. Number 4, the issue of inclusivity. Both panel and the dialogue agree that inclusivity is very, very important. What does it mean? It must involve the stakeholder. The stakeholder will be both parties, inclusive of other parties such as PULO, BIPP, GIMP, the stakeholder in the south, the people of Patani, diaspora, and also to some extent international NGOs and all. So in a nutshell, both parties is very, very happy with the outcome of the dialogue. It is a major breakthrough in which as you are aware, for the past 1 year, the dialogue been stalled, not because of any parties, but because of the circumstances whereby Thailand has its general election.
On to the international front, a door that blew away from an Alaska Airlines flight shortly after takeoff may not have been properly secured. This was revealed in the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board initial findings from its probe into the incident in January. According to the report, 4 key bolts used to secure the door plug to the fuselage were missing. This was revealed in a photo evidence at the Boeing 737 MAX factory in Renton, Washington. The report added that the lack of damage to the door plug, which fell an estimated 16,000 feet, also suggests that the bolts were missing during the flight. Despite that, the agency, however, did not determine what caused the incident. The board's full investigation is expected to last up to a year before final conclusions are drawn regarding the January 5th incident. Rescuers are battling to find dozens of people missing after a landslide buried buses and houses in a gold mining village in the southern Philippines. At least 6 people were killed and 31 injured in the incident. Local officials report that 41 people were still missing. The landslide happened on Tuesday night in the remote village in Davao de Aro province on Mindanao Island. 2 buses were picking up employees outside a gold mining site when the landslide struck. It was unclear yet if the dead were from the bus or people that may have been trapped in their homes. Military personnel have been called in to help with rescue efforts. Rain has pounded parts of Mindanao off and on for weeks, forcing tens of thousands into emergency shelters. Chile's former president, Sebastián Piñera, has died in a helicopter crash at the age of 74. 3 days of national mourning has been declared and preparations have begun for a state funeral to take place on Friday.
3 other people on board the aircraft survived when it crashed into a lake in southern Chile. Piñera was pronounced dead shortly after rescue personnel arrived at the scene. Officials have yet to confirm the helicopter's intended destination and whether Piñera, who flew his own helicopter, was the pilot. The conservative politician and businessman was credited with rapid economic growth during his first term from 2010 to 2014. He was best known abroad for his role in overseeing the rescue of 33 miners trapped underneath the Atacama Desert in 2010. After leaving presidency, he remained active in politics, speaking out on issues such as the attempt to draft a new constitution and supporting other conservative leaders in the region.
Workers in Australia will soon have the right to disconnect and not answer unreasonable calls or emails outside of working hours, with potential fines for employers who break the rules. The federal government has proposed the changes to the Industrial Relations Act in a parliamentary bill that it says will protect workers' rights and help restore the work-life balance.
Employment Minister Tony Burke said a majority of senators have now declared support for the legislation. The provision stops employees from working unpaid overtime through a right to disconnect from unreasonable contact out of hours. The bill, expected to be introduced in Parliament later this week, also includes other provisions like a clearer pathway from temporary to permanent work and minimum standards for temporary workers and truck drivers. Some politicians, employer groups and corporate leaders warned that the right to disconnect provision was an overreach and would undermine the move towards flexible working and impact competitiveness. Similar laws giving employees a right to switch off their devices are already in place in France, Spain, and other countries in the European Union.
That wraps our AWANI tonight. I am Farhana Sheikh. Thank you for watching.